Hi everyone, this is Denisha Hodge and I'm here with Black Long Island, and today we are interviewing Jason Richberg. He is running for the 15th Legislative District of Suffolk County.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Not bad.
Good. Glad to talk to you today. So we're gonna.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. So today we're gonna ask him a couple of questions on why he's running for office. So let's take it away. First question is, what is the purpose of a legislator?
Well, that's a multi-phase question, but the legislature was founded about 50 years ago. And the purpose was before the county was represented by town supervisors who were on the board of supervisors. So there was a referendum because there was a lawsuit that felt it was not representative of the body. And they felt that it should be a more representative function. So that's why they broke up the county into 18 legislative districts. And then each district would be represented by a legislator. Previously, if you were in the town of Shelter Island, which has about 1,500 residents, you had the same authority or same purview as somebody from Brookhaven who represents 600,000 residents. That's not necessarily fair. It's not really a good system. So they figured that the county legislator, breaking it up and making it just based on the county system, will be better. But I see legislators as extensions of the community. I see them as representatives of their districts, but also, more importantly, advocates for the county residents. In the role that I'm running for, I'd be an advocate for the legislative district of the 15th legislative district, but there are decisions that are made at the legislature that affect everyone. They affect people from Amityville to Southampton. And being a legislator isn't complicated, really. It's more about compassion. It's more about making common sense decisions and understanding that there are some things that have to be balanced. And we have to figure out, as a legislator, how are we doing the most good for the most amount of people? And also, listening to what people really want. Because if we don't start listening to what people really want, we're not going to be doing the right thing for people.
Right. And that leads into my next question. As far as bail reform laws that are going on right now, I know it's more of a federal and state issue, but as far as county, what is your position on the new bail reform laws?
So I think it's like any new program. It's complicated. There are positives and there are negatives. People are coming to court back at a better rate. People are able to make better decisions about, making bail, and they don't have to worry about whether I can feed my family or pay my bail. But I think on a county issue, I think this is just another version of another state mandate. So the state passed the bail reform package, and they didn't really communicate with the local governments to see how that's going to affect them. So just in the district attorney's office alone, it's going to cost us $7 million in order to run a 24-hour bureau to be able to process all these cases. That's not including the expenses that the medical examiner is going to have, the probation department, and the police department, because all of these departments are now going to have to move to a 24-hour basis, which some of them were already, but then they're going to have to move staff around. People are going to have to change their schedules because it wasn't rolled out in a way that we could phase things in. It's easy for me to say play Monday morning quarterback. I would say we should have done a phased-in approach, and we should have had all the stakeholders at the table. You should have had the reform advocates, law enforcement, and more importantly, county and local governments, because the county and local governments are the ones who are going to be carrying out these initiatives throughout the year. And the county budget is a $3 billion state county budget. It's another $1 billion roughly for the community college. So you're talking about $4 billion. Of that $4 billion, a majority of that is state mandates. And so a lot of things that we just have to pay for, and we're just told you have to do this and come up with the money. And that's not really fair to the residents of Suffolk County, especially because we didn't have a seat at the table.
So as your experience, running for legislator, what do you think from your past positions has prepared you for this?
Well, I've worked in a district office. 10 years ago, I started in district office. I worked in a district office for 4 years. So I got to see our district all come together for Hurricane Sandy and help folks get back in their homes, clean up properties. I was the clerk. I am the clerk of the legislature. I was the chief deputy clerk of the legislature. So I see every piece of resolution, every legislation that comes in, every report, everything comes through my desk. So I'm able to see what's going on in the county all the time. But more importantly, I lived in the district. I've lived in the district my whole life. So I understand. These people are my neighbors. It's not just something I just passively think about. So the experience of just, leaving my house, I can't just leave my house in the morning because somebody stops me and says, you know what do you think about this? Or I'm having a problem with this. That has really affected me because I realized that people want their government to be responsive to them and they want it to be attainable. I was also the warden of my church. I just came off the board there, which is a small nonprofit, $200,000. That is our budget, and we had to balance budgets. We had to make, tough choices of how to consolidate services, how to, take our cleaning service and our lawn care service and figure out, can we get somebody to do both services at the same time? We had to hire people. We had issues with former staff members. So that gave me the idea of this is how you run a department. At the same time that I was running that, I was running the clerk's office. As a father, I've had to navigate the system. I've had to try and get health care for one of my sons. I've had to try and, fight with the state in order to find out where the health care was coming from and why we didn't get it in time. And these are things that people in the district fight with all the time. And I had experience advocating for people, 6 years ago in the district office, but it's different when it's you. You understand that sometimes the system isn't welcoming to you, but you also understand that, the system doesn't understand that you work full time too, right? And it's hard if you work 9 to 5 and you have to take time out to make this phone call and call people back and do what you have to do in order to get answers. Sometimes they don't understand that. And so those experiences have really impacted me because I realized that we need to fundamentally look at how government works and also how we respond to people. Because if we don't respond to people on a personal level, they're not going to feel the change and they're not going to feel that you're invested in them.
Wow, that was a good answer. I think we both been on that side too. We both worked in government.
Yep.
And I was on that side too after I left Bob and just trying to get the Medicaid and Medicare and just trying to get that help.
And people don't understand how hard that is.
Right.
They think, they walk into your office and I talked to Jason and it should just be done. Right. You're we don't have magic switches that we're just able to make things happen. And sometimes as many times as they're fighting and yelling at us, we're calling other folks and yelling at them saying, why isn't this done yet? And people just don't understand that. And I think we need to convey that better.
Right. I think people need to have the patience for that to be on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
You're 100% right.
So that leads into my next question. As a millennial, we're both millennials. Mm-hmm. We're not 40 yet. We're still in our 30s.
I'm holding on to that, not 40.
I'm just holding on to that.
I'm going to grab that.
My question to you is, how do you go out to reach to millennials? How do you advocate for millennials?
So I think the most important thing that I've done over my last 10 years is we created the Youth Caucus, first in the district office. Duwayne said he wanted to have a group of kids meet on a periodic basis to talk to them about their issues. And I saw that idea and I said, I think we need to do a little bit more. So we brought a group of kids together and, they keep me on my toes. To be honest with you, you can't come to them half. Right. If you don't come to them all the way and you're not open and honest with them, they'll let you know really quickly, right? So that was the first thing. And so we created this Youth Caucus. I think we're in our 11th year now. And we've seen kids, go on to college, become lawyers, do great things. But also, they always come back and say, thank you, because I learned something. And a majority of them, I think with the exception of 2, went on to get college degrees. The other 2 who didn't are very successful young men who are employed and are working consistently. And then when I came over to the legislature, Duwayne said, I want to create a internship program. And I said, okay, that's good. What do you want? He says, I want them to have an experience in government. And so with that, we created the PAGE program. And so the PAGE program is a 12-week program that I sort of modeled it after one of the programs I did in Oregon, the Politicore. But that 12-week program is you get a full experience of what it's like to be a legislator. So you make laws, you write laws, you make a capital budget, you make an operating budget. And when I say a capital budget and operating budget, you're dealing with $3 billion worth of money. And so make them go out and find, rental space for their district offices. They're meeting with county officials and the like. And so those are the ways that I've reached out, and I think we've graduated 100 kids from the program, and of them, I know there's a number of them. Some of them have been on MSNBC and sat in the impeachment hearings. Some of them have just gotten their law degree themselves. Some of them have moved on to be advocates and work for nonprofits and lobbyists in a number of different forms. But other of them came back and they want to work in government. I have 2 of them who actually went upstate and are interning for the governor now. And those are kids who didn't have this experience beforehand, but they would not have had this opportunity if we didn't create this PAGE program. So the first thing I would say, going back to your question, is what we're doing for millennials is we're doing social media, right? I'm reaching out, I'm having conversations. But the thing I will say is, if someone has a question, if someone wants to talk to me, they have a group, I will sit down and talk to anyone. I don't have to agree with you on 100 things. I don't have to agree with you on one thing. But the main thing is that we need to have conversations. And a lot of times people retreat back to their camps. They're, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever it is. They retreat back to their camps, and then we can't get work done. That's what's happening in Washington. Folks forget the fact that we take an oath to serve the American people. We don't take an oath to serve a party, right? So if we don't realize that and don't figure out that we all have to move forward together, that's why my logo is Let's Move Forward Together. Because if we don't do it together and have these conversations, we're going to be lost. And I think that's a problem.
Okay, so in a perfect world, what do you hope to accomplish within the first 100 days in office?
So if elected, what I would do immediately is I would go to every department. I've already talked to people. I'm going to do walkthroughs of every department. I don't want to see the nice, shiny hallways. I want to see the bathrooms that are messed up. I want to have conversations with the people who work there. So that's first. The second is I want to attend the IDA meetings, the water quality meetings, the farmland preservation meetings, and just sit in and listen. I've gone to them as an aide, but I want to go to them as an elected official. Other things I think we should do is I want to have meetings in the district with different constituency groups. So I want to meet with each hamlet individually and have those conversations, but also meet with women, millennials, veterans, seniors, and the like, because everybody has a different issue and everybody needs to be heard. I would also sit down with the inspector of the first precinct who represents the town of Babylon to have conversations with him and say, all right, what do you see the challenges are that you're facing in the district? I would do a ride-along with probation and the deputy sheriffs, because I've done a ride-along with the police department. I want to do a ride-along with everybody because I want to see how they view things. I would also want to sit down with all the school superintendents. Sheriff Toulon came out with a report a couple of months ago, in which that there are the residents of Riverhead and Yaphank, meaning the folks who are in the correctional facility, come from different school districts in the county. Some of the school districts reside in the 15th legislative district. So we need to have a conversation with all the superintendents to say, all right, what are we going to do together so we can fix this? Because if we don't sit down and have these conversations, it's going to be a problem. And this isn't a 5-year plan, this isn't a 10-year plan, this is a life plan that's going to evolve, but we need to start those conversations now.
So my next question is, when should the black vote be divided and when should the black vote be united? Do you believe you are dividing the black vote, and what good do you think can come of it?
Well, we live in a democracy, which I wholeheartedly value. While it'll be more powerful for the black vote to remain unified, I think it's also healthy to have a variety and options of people and have those conversations. I think people think that the black vote is this monolith. You hear on TV all the time, oh, who's talking to the black vote? I think a lot of times we don't have conversations with the black vote, but I also think sometimes we talk to our black elected officials differently than we talk to our white elected officials. And I don't think that's fair either. right? I think if we're going to have a conversation with elected officials, it needs to be the same across the board. I feel that I'm the best candidate for this position. I've had 10 years of working in the county legislature. I know what's going on. I know the players. I know where to get things done. I know how to get things done, and I see how it doesn't work for everybody. I see how it doesn't work for me personally. I've had to fight with folks to get, services for my family. So I understand that more than anybody will ever know. But I think we need to figure out together how we all can move forward. And like I said, I sat down with my opponent before she became my opponent, one of my opponents. I didn't sit down with Chris Connors, but I sat down with my opponent before she became my opponent, and I said, hey, how can we work together? How can we move forward? I'm not saying you don't have valid issues. Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. If you have a group of folks who think I'm not reaching out to them, I'll sit down and reach out to them, and I keep that open for everyone. If anyone wants to sit down and talk to me, that's what I'm here to do. And I also think that we as black people need to invest in ourselves. And you have 2 black candidates running in a race, that's great. But I want that energy to spill over to, the congressional race. We have a black woman who's running for Congress. We have a black woman who's running for state Senate. I want to see that kind of energy there, and I also want to see that kind of support. I think we all need to be, when a person of color makes a candidacy, I think we all need to be standing behind them or with them to make sure they succeed. Because if we don't do that, nobody else will.
So you basically want your constituents to know that you're relatable as a candidate, like you're able to relate to them as being like the millennial too.
Well, I think it's beyond relating, because I am them, right? I have the house. I have the car. My wife and I are trying to figure out how we're going to afford childcare. If it wasn't for my mother and mother-in-law, I don't know where our kids would be. We work non-traditional hours. Right. Neither one of us comes home till 9 o'clock at night, right? And that's before the whole campaign thing was happening. So I understand the issues that everybody faces. I've sat with people. I've had to watch my friends lose their homes after I was fighting for them to keep their homes, right? And it's not a conversation that I just sort of laugh off. No, that deeply hurts me. Every time I am not able to help someone, I take that too personally. I wake up with it. I go to sleep with it. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if I've known you for 10 years or I've known you for 5 years. Every time. And I think people don't necessarily know that. And, I think the other part is that, sometimes people don't want to talk because they're afraid of how they're going to be viewed. And personally, that was the first question that Duwayne asked me when I was being interviewed, is how are you going to react? And I said, I'm going to react with humility and listen. And I think that's what we all miss, is that sometimes we get lost in our own world and we don't listen to people, and I'm here to listen and then move forward.
Okay. So my last question to you is, you've worked with Duwayne Gregory for a very long time. You have the experience. So what's the best advice he's ever given to you?
Stay yourself. So he wrote me a little letter that said, I wouldn't have trusted you if I didn't think you were ready, but stay yourself. So I think that's the best advice he's ever given me.
All right, guys. This is Denisha, Black Long Island, Jason Richberg. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, my name is Jason Richberg. I first want to thank Black Long Island for hosting this forum. I think it's important that we have an opportunity to meet and have conversations with our candidates on different platforms and in different spectrums. I believe that I'm the best candidate for this position. I've had 10 years worth of experience working not only in government, but in Suffolk County government. I understand that sometimes the system works or does not work for people like you and I, and that's why I'm running, because I know where the issues are. I understand the budget. I've sat in on the budget working groups. I've sat in when they've made decisions on layoffs. I've sat there and watched people who I work with had to walk out because they don't have a job anymore. I've had to fight not only for my community members and fellow residents, but for my family to get services that we need. I'm here to listen to you. I'm always here to listen to you, and no matter what happens, just understand that I have your back, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.